Hello, this is Tiffany Schlane, live from San Francisco at the 50/50 Day headquarters, and we're super excited to throw it over to New York to our fabulous partners, Refinery 29. Our film 50/50, which kind of started this whole day, was part of the Shatterbox anthology, and they've been amazing partners in 50/50 Day. They did incredible creative on this billboard that just went up in Times Square with Nayrel, and they're having an amazing panel in New York right now, so we're going to throw it over to New York. You can watch it. There's 15 minutes here. You can watch the whole thing on Refinery 29's Facebook page or on ours, which is Tiffany Schlane. And look forward to seeing you for the rest of 50/50 Day.
And Facebook Live, I'm Ashley Ford, Senior Features Writer here at Refinery 29, and this is 50/50 Day. We've assembled this amazing group of panelists who are going to talk about how to create a more equal world for all of us. Gender, color, sex, sexual orientation, whatever it is, we're making it happen. The conversation is part of a 24-hour global live cast and a Q&A for 50/50 Day, so there's going to be more info, there's going to be more of this happening all day. So check out 5050day.org and check out the hashtag Getting to 50. Hashtag Getting to 50. So before we dive into the conversation, I'm going to introduce these lovely panelists. First of all, we're going to introduce Dee Poku, who is the founder of WIE and the Other Festival. Thank you for being here, Dee. And then to my right, we've got Cindy Gallup, founder and CEO of Make Love, Not Porn. To my left, we've got Stephanie Rule, host of MSNBC Live with Stephanie Rule. And then Rachel Sklar, writer, entrepreneur, feminist, mother of Ruby, and co-founder of The List.
Good one.
Sally Cohn, founder, my bad, Sally. Writer and CNN political commentator. Also a founder of Just Sharp Shirts. I feel like you always have the best shirts. Didn't you just have to give your dog one of your shirts?
Oh my gosh, we're not sharing that story.
We don't have to talk about that right now.
Yes,
but
I
she
did, but
she had
moving
to give her
on.
dog the shirt off her back because that's the kind of woman she is. So today we're going to start with this
weird.
question. One question. The first question that I wanted to ask you guys really quickly, because as we talk about 50/50 and as it relates to gender, what does it look like when men are actually being helpful in reaching the 50/50 goal? I hear from men all the time that they want to help, they don't necessarily know how. So if any of those men are watching right now, what does that look like?
It does not look like the current administration in the White House. I'm just going to offer that.
Although, I don't know, if they keep firing white guys, eventually. Right? Okay.
Actually, I regularly get asked by men, how can we help? And I say to them, it's very easy, just two things. Number one, listen. Just listen to us. Just stop, pause, listen. And then number two, believe us. Listen and believe. And then every action you need to take to help us just falls out of those two things. But start with those two things.
Do something. So there is so much talk about women's leadership and women's empowerment, and you cannot find a company out there that doesn't have an initiative or a women's leadership conference, but it has to get out of human resources and the pink ghetto, and you actually have to see companies take steps. How many conversations have we had or heard about the importance of getting women on boards? You have more CEOs in Fortune 500 companies named John or David than you do women total. If you look at activist investors, the biggest activist investors out there are the ones that rip up corporate boards, they rip people out of their CEO seats and put new CEOs and replace the board seats. They continuously, when the rubber hits the road and a company is in trouble and those board seats get replaced, time and time again, those seats are replaced with white guys over the age of 60. So there's so much talk about this, they have to actually do it.
And just to pick up from where Stephanie left off, first of all, got nothing against white guys over 60. I came from one. And I'm not, by the way, an expert on men either, just you might have heard. But to take it to the next level, I am a big fan of quotas. I mean, it's like, and it used to be, it was the thing, and then it became a taboo word, and now we say things like 50/50, which is, great messaging and totally a better hashtag. But at the end of the day, look, you have institutions, organizations, corporations, committees, groups, subgroups that are not currently as diverse as they should be, are not as inclusive as they should be. And the only way you're going to get there is when the people who are currently in power, who are not by and large, queer women of color, say, all right, we're not filling this position until we can find a qualified woman of color, a qualified queer woman of color. And to the other part of the believing that Cindy talked to is believing that they're out there, believing that there are talented. It's not like, because you'll hear people make excuses like, well, we can't find any women, right? We can't find any talented people of color. It's just, and that's just so absolutely ludicrous and shows
lazy.
your own blind spots, and lazy, frankly. So like, get out of your comfort zone, change your networks, change all of that, but commit to quotas.
Yeah,
So-
I've always loved quotas. I've always loved the quotas because it makes it easy, right? It becomes a line item that has to be met on your budget or on your to-do list. I often I started in this business, the business of women, which
The business
yes,
of
the
women.
business of women. It was really lucrative, let me tell you. But talking about conferences and how you'd all see all these conferences, they would always be just like a sea of white dudes. And then, conference organizers would say, what Sally said, like, we tried, we couldn't find them, Sheryl Sandberg, we asked Sheryl Sandberg, but she was in the quiet period. I actually got that from a conference once. I was like, really? I think there might be more women around. But if I always say, like, what about catering? You guys, this is great. The food looks great. What would happen if the caterer was like, oh, we tried to find sandwiches, but we just couldn't? Like, you make the catering happen. You make the quotas happen. It's not that difficult. If you can get sandwiches, you can get people.
And also, a really important thing to say about quotas is, so I regularly hear from women who say to me, oh, but Cindy, I don't want to get hired just because I'm a woman. And my response to that is, get over it and look around you at all the mediocre men who got hired just because they were men.
Amen.
Affirmative action is happening all around us in the wrong direction. So it's about time we turned it round to make it work for us.
So I also think that it starts in the home. It feels like I'm sort of back in the 50s when I have conversations with friends who come from two-income households who have children, and we all take on the brunt of the housework and the childcare, and it's not fair. And obviously, when you have those responsibilities, it takes you away from your ability to succeed and to be great at your job and to be able to commit to those responsibilities. So I do think that it starts there, where men need to contribute equally and to help. I think that's really important. And actually, to your point about quotas, I was just looking this up. So I remember when, I'm from the UK, and I remember when Tony Blair was like our great white savior. And there was a period when, we were very excited. But one thing that he did do right was he introduced quotas in putting his cabinet together. And so in 1992, I have some stats. In 1992, there was something like 10% female MPs in the UK. And by 1997, when he was elected, it was 101. There's a great picture of Tony Blair surrounded by, they call them Blair's babes, which sucked. But the point being that it needed quotas because they tried sort of introducing, ideas around sort of, having to introduce one woman but it just wasn't working. So eventually it was just a mandatory requirement that you had to have a certain number of women, and that was the only thing that worked.
Stephanie?
The Fearless Girl statue, people love it. So many people have taken their pictures with it. The story behind her, State Street Global, one of the largest money managers in the world, put that statue up as part of a campaign, or when the statue was erected, they sent letters to the 3,000 companies they're invested with. And they said, you have 1 year. And in that year, if you do not show us concrete steps that you have taken action to put women on your board, we're going to sell out. We're going to sell our position in your company because you do not reflect what the economy looks like, what the country looks like, what consumers look like. So what we need to do when we see things like Fearless Girl, don't just take your picture with her. Don't just say how cool it is and what she represents. Realize the campaign behind it, learn about it, and promote that. That's why they did it.
Wow. You guys are smart. And I like it.
So are you, Ashley.
I like it so much. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. This is actually, in the 50-50 film, one of the things that you see is that women make 77 cents to the dollar of men, and that women of color make even less. Sally brought that up really eloquently just a moment ago. So how can, this is a question for everybody, but I think we noticed that, like, you know, it's like, you know, up here, some women of color, some not. That's okay. We don't hate you for that. We're okay with it. But we do have a question. How can white women be more helpful to women of color who are also trying to reach 50-50? If we're going to cross that line, how do we at least attempt to cross it together?
Transparency.
So what I do in that context, and by the way, I'm half English, half Chinese, so I'm not totally
You
white.
are of colour,
I am
Cindy.
of
We
colour.
embrace
Yeah.
you.
But actually, when I talk to people, audiences, industries, companies about everything they need to do to be diverse, and as Ashley said right up front, we're talking diversity of, you know, gender, race, ethnicity, sexuality, disability, age. But what I always say to them is, spearhead your efforts by targeting black women, because they are the least represented group. In my industry, advertising, you know, my background is advertising, and, you know, I say to my industry, the single rarest unicorn in advertising is the black female executive creative director. She is even rarer than the Hispanic female ECD, the Indian female ECD, the Asian female ECD. And so I recommend to everybody that the action they're taking, the programs they're creating, the diversity inclusion they are driving, actually always think about your target first and foremost is black women, and then everybody else comes with that, but that's where you start.
I say legislation. President Obama tried to lead the charge to have large companies disclose compensation according to gender, race, because it's about transparency. If you don't know, then you would have no idea. And it's very difficult to expect your employees to share their compensation with one another. But if corporate America was forced to do it, Salesforce founder Mark Benioff is a leader in this effort, and he has said to every company out there with more than 1,000 people, you have a human resources system. All you need is the E button. In that system, you can look up every single job function and pair that against every employee in the company. By putting those columns next to one another, you will be able to tell very quickly what your employees' job functions are and who they are. When Mark did this at Salesforce, it cost him the next day something like $3 or $5 million to write it. But it just took that one day, and now they're paired off.
Wow.
I think it's also, sorry, Sal. You know, these are all social good arguments, and those are great arguments. That's obviously what animates us. But that's not the only argument. There are solid economic arguments that diversity breeds better results. I mean, not just solid economic arguments. The data is there. It is strong. It is incontrovertible. And not only that, I think maybe one could argue, say, that the boardroom that decided that Pepsi commercial was a good idea might have benefited from some diversity.
Not one single minority or female saw that advertisement. And Pepsi is run by an Indian American woman.
And I think that the norms and defaults that a room full of white dudes is a room full of people who matter is like, that's how you get these colossal.
It's a room full of blind spots.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I think what's really important to say, can I speak on behalf of myself, is that when I was in the corporate world, I always felt kind of invisible as far as my color was concerned. I spent so much time just trying not to make it about my color and trying to make it about my ability. And I don't think I ever had a conversation about what I was going through as a black woman navigating corporate culture. And so I just think that it would also be helpful if you would just see us, and have those conversations with us, and just sort of support us in that journey, because it's a very lonely journey.
And when you say see, Dee, I think because you can quote, unfortunately, facts and figures and rational arguments till you're blue in the face, and until you get people to feel that they want to change this for reasons that are very, very emotionally powerful to them, they won't change. I went to an extraordinary evening a few weeks ago. I want to give credit in the ad industry to Interpublic Group and Michael Roth, the head of Interpublic, who are actually taking genuine action to build diversity into everything they do. And they held a phenomenal evening, which was the first ever Black Women's Summit. They had an amazing lineup of the most amazing creative leaders, black female leaders in our industry, and a full Interpublic audience there, and I was in the audience. And the evening was extraordinary because just listening to brilliant creative black women talk about their experience, talk about their points of views and their perspectives, I mean, I found that a revelatory evening. In a way that, I've been meaning to talk to Interpublic about this more subsequently, about where you take that. But when you manifest visibility, points of view, perspective, in the real world, in an experience that people can actually be a part of,